Rachel had always been the reliable one. While her family in Houston stumbled from one financial crisis to another, she was the steady constant, the one with the 9-to-5 job, the careful budget, the emergency fund that somehow became everyone else's emergency fund for years. She'd watched her savings account drain like sand through her fingers, each withdrawal accompanied by the same unspoken expectation: Rachel will figure it out. Her parents' electric bill, Matt's kids' soccer fees, the car repair that couldn't wait, the medical copay that came as a surprise. Each request arrived with the weight of obligation wrapped in family loyalty, and each time, Rachel transferred the money without complaint. She told herself this was what family did. They showed up for each other. She never stopped to wonder why the showing up only seemed to go one direction. So when Rachel suggested a modest family trip to Florida that spring, she genuinely thought it might be different. Maybe this time, they could make a memory together that didn't come with a payment plan. Her mother's response was swift and absolute: "We're broke, we can't afford to take you on vacation this year." The words landed like a door slamming shut. Matt had actually laughed and suggested Rachel stay home to save them all money. As if she were just another expense to be trimmed from their budget, like switching to generic cereal or canceling a streaming service. Rachel accepted the rejection with the grace she'd perfected over the years. If they couldn't afford a family trip, then she'd take care of herself. She used her credit card points and cobbled together a modest solo trip to New York. Nothing fancy, just a few days to walk through Central Park and see a Broadway show from the cheap seats. It felt like a small rebellion. This vacation she was giving herself with resources she'd earned. The airport should have been the beginning of her escape. Standing in the long economy security line, carry-on bag at her feet, Rachel was already mentally in Manhattan. Then she heard a boisterous, unmistakable laugh that made her blood run cold. She turned around slowly, as if moving too quickly might shatter the reality she thought she understood. There they were. Her mother, relaxed and smiling in an expensive new sundress. Matt with his arm around his wife, both of them corralling their kids who were bouncing with excitement. And they were checking into first class. Not just flying luxury to Orlando, holding what her mother kept calling their golden tickets while laughing about champagne in the sky. Rachel looked down at her own crumpled economy boarding pass, at the gate number that would take her to a different terminal, a different world. They hadn't even seen her standing there. She didn't make a scene. Rachel had never been good at making scenes. Instead, she stood frozen in that security line, letting the truth wash over her in cold, clarifying waves. It wasn't that they couldn't afford her. It was that they chose not to. They had chosen to exclude her while continuing to drain her accounts for their emergencies. The family home's electricity that she'd paid for had powered the devices they'd used to book this trip. The money she'd sent for Matt's kids had freed up his budget for first-class seats. The flight to New York was a blur. The city was beautiful, but Rachel walked through it like a ghost, her mind 3 states away, replaying every excuse, every "we're just struggling right now," every "we don't know what we'd do without you." By the time she returned to Houston, something fundamental had shifted inside her. The old Rachel, the one who answered every call, who never questioned, who always figured it out, had been left behind somewhere over the Atlantic. The test came exactly as she'd expected. 2 days after her return, her mother called, voice trembling with carefully calibrated distress. The gas bill was overdue. Things were so tight this month. They didn't know what to do. The pause on the other end of the line was expectant, waiting for Rachel to jump in with her usual "I'll take care of it." Instead, Rachel asked, "Were things tight when you booked first-class tickets to Orlando?" The silence that followed was deafening. Then came the scramble, the excuses tumbling out in a desperate cascade. They'd used miles and points, different miles and points, not the ones Rachel had suggested for the family trip. They deserved something nice after Dad's health scares. Matt's kids had needed a break. The tickets had been practically free. Didn't Rachel understand? Didn't she care about family? "I do care about family," Rachel said quietly. "That's why I'm done being the only one who pays for it." She removed her credit card from their utility accounts that afternoon. She canceled the automatic transfers that had been bleeding her dry for years. She blocked the Venmo requests and ignored the text messages that evolved from pleading to angry to manipulative within the span of a single evening. Her phone buzzed constantly with messages she no longer felt obligated to answer. The consequences came swiftly and without mercy. Within 2 weeks, the carefully constructed illusion of her family's financial stability collapsed like a house of cards. The home Rachel had grown up in, the one she'd been subsidizing without realizing it, fell 3 months behind on the mortgage. Her father, who'd always seemed too proud to acknowledge Rachel's contributions, now had to face the bank's foreclosure notices. They sold the house. Not for profit but for survival. Her parents moved into a small rental on the other side of town, the kind of place with thin walls and a shared laundry room. Matt sold his SUV and downsized to a used sedan. His kids were pulled from their expensive soccer league and piano lessons. The life they'd been living, the life Rachel's money had been quietly funding, proved unsustainable the moment she stopped sustaining it. The social media posts started soon after, vague booking at its finest. You find out who really cares about you when times get hard. Family is supposed to be forever. But some people turn their backs when you need them most. Blessed to know who my real supporters are. The posts were never tagged, never specific, but Rachel's cousin started sending her screenshots, asking if everything was okay. She didn't respond to the posts. She didn't defend herself or explain. Rachel had spent enough years justifying her choices to people who'd never questioned their own. Instead, she did something she'd never done before. She focused on herself. Her paycheck stayed in her own account. All of it. For the first time in her adult life, Rachel watched her savings grow instead of shrink. The number climbed slowly at first, then faster, accumulating compound interest instead of compound guilt. She stopped eating rice and beans to make room in her budget for someone else's emergency. She bought new work clothes without calculating the opportunity cost. She said yes to drinks with coworkers, to weekend trips with friends, to the gym membership she'd been putting off. 3 months after the airport revelation, Rachel received a promotion at work. Her manager had noticed her increased focus, her renewed energy, her willingness to stay late on projects that actually mattered to her. The raise wasn't enormous, but it was hers. Every dollar of it belonged to her future, not someone else's past. Rachel began planning a trip to Europe, a real trip, the kind with hotels instead of hostels, with museums and restaurants and experiences she wouldn't have to apologize for. She researched flights without checking if anyone else needed her credit card that month. She browsed hotels without calculating how much she owed her family. She existed, for perhaps the first time, as a person whose life belonged entirely to herself. The angry calls eventually stopped. The guilt trips faded. Her family learned to live within their actual means because they no longer had a choice. Rachel occasionally wondered if they understood what they'd lost, not just her money, but her trust, her presence, her belief in them. She wondered if they'd ever apologize or if they even recognized they'd done anything wrong.